Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 2024 board meeting for the Patchogue-Medford School District. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have appointed Dr. Coleman as the interim district clerk for this evening, and he's going to now going to get the meeting started.
I'm going to review, welcome everybody to the September 16th, 2024 Board of Education meeting. Just to go over the safety message this evening, in the event of an emergency, please use the emergency exits located at the front and rear of the auditorium to exit the building. Do not attempt to drive away as you may impede the arrival of emergency services. Please be advised that smoking and the use of vaping products is prohibited on school property at all times. When addressing the board during public comment periods, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes with no sharing of minutes. You will be warned when 30 seconds are left, and you will be asked to conclude after the 3 minutes have elapsed. Please refrain from discussing specific students or staff members to protect their privacy. These matters should be discussed with the appropriate administrator. All questions or comments should be addressed to the Board of Education president. Thank you.
Dr. Cohen, would you like to go over the ground rules, please?
I think I covered it with the time on the public comment
Okay.
and the 3 minutes.
All righty. So we're ready to start on agenda item number 7, which is the presentations and reports. Dr. Jones?
Sure. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Board of Education, to all of those that are present. PMAA is out in force tonight, and good evening also. I see my PMCT president here, as well as CSCA operational president. A lot of union representation here. Love to see that, and welcome to our community members, etc. We'll start. We know that our student representative has some other conflicts this evening and have requested to go first. So we are going to start with Emma, if that's okay, trustee. Ella?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm sorry.
It's very important. Most important thing ever. Dance.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
Is my presentation on here, or do I have? Oh, there you go. No problem.
You could give it back
You want to do that one?
38 slides.
Can we bring up the ex officio members' presentation, please?
Yeah, we skipped John.
Hello. Hi. It's so great to see everyone again. Welcome to our September 16th, I don't know why it says 15th, but September 16th business meeting. I am the ex officio student member of the Board of Education. My name is Ella McCann, for those who don't know me. And tonight I will be discussing what has been going on in our buildings from the beginning of September. There we go, perfect. In the beginning of the month, we had our first day of school in all of our buildings. Eagle Elementary shares a new school-wide theme for the year. River Elementary holds a back-to-school playdate, and many of our schools hold Patriot Day celebrations and honor September 11th. To start, here are some pictures from the first day of school at Bay Elementary. As you can see, the students and faculty reconnected and began their new school year. Oregon Middle School also welcomed new staff members into their building. Miss Wood for Health, Miss Hastings DeBow for French, Miss Capcho for Chorus, as well as 2 Patchogue-Medford alumni teachers, Miss Verdi and Miss Morlero. Next, Eagle Elementary school-wide theme is Lights, Camera, Learn. Be the star of your learning. Thanks to our generous PTA, they purchased shirts for all students, faculty, and staff, which everyone proudly will wear on Mondays. Also, a huge thank you and shout out to the custodians and secretaries who were very busy this summer getting the school ready to open and shine. River Elementary also held a beginning of the year fun on September 12th. Their playdate was the kickoff to an amazing year of connections and memories for all students. Back at Eagle Elementary, they celebrated Patriot Day on 9/11 with a school-wide Zoom read-aloud held by Miss Cahill. She read the book September 12th, We Knew Everything Would Be All Right in Miss Harrison's class. This book was written and illustrated by first grade students of H. Byron Masteritz at Elementary School in Connecticut, Missouri. Eagle came together as a school and supported each other on this day. Similarly to other schools on September 11th, Ms. Poulos' class placed flags in the courtyard in honor of that day at the Patchogue-Medford High School. Great job to all for taking a moment in their day to remember those we have lost. And with that, thank you for listening to my portion of today's meeting, and I would like to welcome all of our students and staffs back to school. I look forward to a year of great community and growth for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ella.
Are you ready for me to proceed?
Dr. Jones.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. President, and thank you, Ella, for that wonderful report. We appreciate you. Oh, okay. So next, we have traditionally at the start, the first meeting in September, we have our back-to-school reports from our assistant superintendents. We as the cabinet have worked very hard over the course of the summer, preparing the schools along with the administrators in general. And we're going to ask each of them to come forward and provide us with a snapshot into the work that has been occurring over the summer. So we will start with Mrs. Canetti, and we will follow with all of the assistant soups in their respective orders of their reports.
Okay, good evening, trustees. As Dr. Jones said, I am going to start this evening with some updates on the Office of Curriculum and Instruction. Dr. Cohn will then update you on HR. Dr. Lucas has a variety of updates from PPS and Superintendent's Conference Day, and Mr. Mazzi will update you on plants and facilities. So as you know, much of the work that we did this summer really revolved around the goals that Dr. Jones has outlined for all of us, as well as the Board of Education. So we want you to know that we reviewed all of these goals at our admin retreat, and we're going to intertwine them into our department meetings, our faculty meetings, and you will also see them in many of our success plans and district improvement plans. So this year we had several different committees. We had a progress report card committee that I really co-led with Mr. Santacroce, who is right behind me. He helped and assisted with our elementary. We had many of our teachers, directors sit on that committee. We also spent a lot of time, our building principals and our directors wrote their school and district success plans. We also had a committee that wrote our district comprehension improvement plans, and South Ocean had a committee that wrote their school improvement plan. The board has seen those plans. We submitted them to you for board approval at the August meeting, and they are listed on our website. We are required by law, under New York State law, to have our improvement plans posted, as well as South Ocean School Improvement Plan. So they are listed on our district website at this time. We also spent a lot of time updating our report card comments, and we have a lot of report card comments, and sometimes the report card comments got very repetitive. And we really wanted to approach this committee by taking it from a place of positivity, and even when there were areas for improvement, make sure the wording was more supportive in nature, The board has some samples of some of the comments that we updated, and we actually grouped our comments to assist our teachers this year. So we organized them by comments that would be more, I would say, positive comments, more comments, needs of improvement, in addition to comments for students who are on homebound instruction or students who are new to our country. So these are just some comments. It's probably easier to read on the copy that I shared with you in front of you, but these are all new comments. And I did submit a memo to all of our secondary teachers that really shared with them all the new comments and how we are going to be organizing them. The committee had a lot of teachers sit on it, and it is important to know that we did discuss as a committee that we will reconvene the committee next summer and get feedback from the teachers as how we organize them and any additional comments that they want to add for next school year. So this is an ongoing committee. We did receive a lot of positive feedback from teachers regarding the updates to the comments and appreciated the organization to the comments. District improvement plans, just wanted to share with you who sat on our DSIP this summer. We had some teachers, we had building principals, directors, and we also had a community member. The district improvement plan has 3 priorities. Many of these priorities were priorities that were embedded in our superintendent goals, and we just really carried them over into our district improvement plan, really focusing on students taking ownership of their learning. There was a section on our SEL, and also we talked about ongoing professional development for student engagement. So those were some of the 3 areas that we focused on, and also really focusing on in our DSIP. You'll notice when you reviewed it, there was a lot that had to do with community engagement and having parent series and educating the parent about some of the new programs, and we actually started that with our E&L department, actually held a community workshop at the Patchogue-Medford Library a few weeks ago, and we had almost over 200 families attend that workshop series. Summer Academy and summer school, we were very busy over the summer. You can see here our building principals and directors once again assisted with running our summer academy and summer school. We had over 150 teachers working this summer throughout the district. We also opened up our door to some of our pre-K students who we screened who had not sat in a pre-K setting to get them acclimated before they came into kindergarten. We had almost 50 of our former pre-K students. We had over, you could see, 779 students in grades K-5. We had 114 students in our middle school. We had over 300 students attend our summer school at the high school. So overall, we had over 1,200 students really enrolled in our schools throughout the summer. So it was a very busy summer. Our schools were very active. I always like to share with the board some feedback. I do give a survey to our administrators, our teachers, and our students just to get feedback about the Summer Academy. These are some of the comments that we received from our administrators about what they felt was the most beneficial part of our program. Really, you will see the ongoing message that we receive from our directors and the building principals is that really it keeps students immersed in learning. There's no summer slide. So some of our most at-risk students are engaged in reading, writing, socialization throughout the summer, so when they transition back in September, it's very seamless. Our attendance is excellent, so when I ask, are the kids coming to our summer academy, you can see excellent to good. The majority of our students did not miss, some missed only 2 days, 3 to 4 days. So our students were coming to our summer academy, which is great to see. And you can see from the feedback, we had very few behavioral problems in our summer academy. This summer, the students really were appreciative that they had a safe and supportive place to attend, at least for 20 days over the summer. Teacher feedback, we asked them if they felt that this was an effective program. You can see 78% of our teachers say it was excellent and 22% said it was good. When we looked at student engagement, teachers told us that kids were very engaged in the work over the summer, and that there was no response that said students were not engaged. So students were eager to come and eager to learn. Then we heard from our students, the most important, and we asked them about were the lessons engaging, and you can see 92% of our students felt that the lessons and the material that we presented over the summer was engaging, and we did have 8% that disagreed with that. So we also asked the students, tell us what are some of your best learning activities this summer, and you can see they gave us a variety. They loved their math lessons, they loved doing research, they really enjoyed playing soccer. We had Olympiads that they were involved in the Olympics over the summer, math games, so a lot of buddy reading going on. We learned some solar systems and science, and a lot of projects. And really the most important thing is the one on the bottom that talks about just being with my friends. So the students really appreciated having the opportunity to socialize with their friends over the summer. I just like to share pictures. These are all pictures that I received from our teachers and building principals throughout the summer school and summer academy, and you can see that kids were actively learning throughout the school day. We always want to know what we can do to improve, so we do go right to our students. You can see that they would love more science and art. I actually thought the second comment was very interesting. So we had some of our 5th grade students tell us that they would really like to be focused on what they can do in 6th grade rather than focusing on some of the material in 5th grade. So I thought that was really great feedback for us in the future, really assisting our most at-risk 5th graders with that transition. So I thought that was great feedback, something I will look to do for next school year. I love the fact that they would love to switch classes, because we do some switching during the school year. They missed that during the summer academy, so that's something that we might be able to easily do next summer. And they want rooms with AC, so I did talk to Mr. Mazzi, and next year he's saying all fully AC'd classrooms for the summer academy, so thank you, Mr. Mazzi, for that. And obviously, they would like breakfast a little bit earlier and better snacks. So we always get a few comments about eating earlier, better snacks, but they also talked about really field trips. That is a little bit hard with the transportation over the summer, but maybe we can look to do field trips between buildings, not long distance. And many of them said nothing. It was great. So that was great to hear from the students. Just some more pictures. These are our little pre-K students. Then I will move on to summer curriculum. So not only were our teachers and directors and principals busy with summer academy, we also had an additional 100 teachers, some did both, who completed over 1,400 hours of curriculum development. So we had many projects going on this year. You can see in all of these different subject areas, there were curriculum updates, enhancements. We had some new actual courses at the high school that we needed to write curriculum for. So our directors and our teachers were actively engaged in many curriculum projects this summer. Many of our curriculum projects and the cost of these projects are funded through a variety of grants as well as through our general fund. This just gives you a little breakdown. We also, in the summer, had many professional development. As you know, trustees or teachers are required to do 6 hours of after-school professional development as part of their contractual obligations. In addition to starting that in this September, we do offer workshops over the summer that our teachers can be involved in. This just gives you an idea of several of the professional development workshops we ran this summer. There were quite a few others. But I did want to share with the board that we had 120 workshops being offered in the month of July and August that our teachers could participate in. We had over 568 teachers and teacher assistants participate this summer in their professional development. We also had 219 of our teachers already completed their 6 hours of required PD over the summer. And I did break down so you can see many of our teachers do take advantage of our summer workshops to start accumulating their 6 hours. In addition, we do, this year, all of our teachers are required to do a mandatory 2 hours of AI, the artificial intelligence, and we had 227 teachers already completed their 2 hours of AI over the summer, and we had another 30 who were close to completing their 2 hours of mandatory. Those 2 hours are embedded in the 6 hours. So of the 6 hours, 2 hours have to be in AI. So Raider Academy. So this was really exciting. Our Raider Academy opened their doors, and you can see Dr. Hochberg did an incredible job really decorating our hallways in a welcoming manner for our students. So right now our Raider Academy, we have 16 students who are attending our Raider Academy. I've had the opportunity to visit them frequently, eat lunch with them on a regular basis. I've had the opportunity to eat with them 2 or 3 times so far since we opened their doors. And I will say the students, I will say, are very appreciative of the program and feel safe. And Dr. R and I were really talking about it the other day, and I'm sure Dr. Lucas will share. It was just really incredible to see students who haven't come to school in over a year or 2 finally walk through our doors. So these are students who had some school phobia. They may have been on home instruction, and they're regularly coming to school. And the nice thing about it is you'll see we have some obviously motivating bulletin boards in all of our classrooms. The teachers have embraced this program, very supportive of the students who are attending our program. And the nice thing I will say is that in our cafeteria, sorry, I just want to go back. We have a cafeteria, and in our cafeteria there are 6 or 7 cafeteria tables, but when I walked into the cafeteria, you would think that all the students, you know, a student here, a student, no. They will all sit around the same cafeteria having conversations, and the first time a group of students who may never have met each other at the high school were actually talking about what they may want to do over the weekend together as a group. So it was really special to see them having conversations and making friendships in a very short period of time. I know we had some hesitations within the community about the program, but I would welcome any of the trustees after this evening. Happy to walk you up there to see some of these classrooms, and really very impressed with Dr. Hochberg and all of our staff in making this a huge success. Office of Bilingual Education. We've been very busy in the Office of Bilingual Education. Just wanted to give the trustees an update. Right now we have a total of 262 students that we had to screen for English E&L services. Of the 262 students, we had 163 qualify to receive E&L services. I've given you a breakdown by building where we have placed our students. We offer dual language programs, a traditional E&L program. We have a transitional bilingual program for our newcomers, and then we also obviously have our students who were non-Ls, which tested proficient on their screener. I also wanted to share with you some trends. So you could see over the last 4 years, the number of students that we have screened as a district. These numbers are based on June, so you can see in terms of the intakes, back in 21, 22, we screened almost 600 students, 578, from September to June. This year, we screened about 262 students as of right now. So, and then you can see the next graph shows you of the students screened in those intakes, how many qualified for E&L and how many were deemed proficient in our screener. So you can see each year our Office of Bilingual Education is one of our busiest offices in addition to registration through the district. And our directors and their staff are doing an outstanding job. We're screening students and placing them very quickly within our district. And that is all I have, and I am going to turn it over to Dr. Cohn.
Wait, I have one question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know if you know this, but it was one of the activities, gym kit? What is that? Gym kit?
Gym kit.
Do you know what that
It's a
is?
program that we have, like a technology program.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Why, you want to teach it?
I just wanted to know what it was.
Thank you, Mrs. Kennedy. Very brief, quick update for you regarding staffing and a few things in HR. So we had a series of administrative changes. I'm not going to read them all, but if you take a look at the slide, there were 12 different administrative changes thus far this year. There may or may not be one additional one forthcoming. But we are very excited about the admin, either changes or new hires that occurred, and the wonderful shifts that they'll make in their respective departments and buildings. Some other staffing updates. We hired 61 teachers this year. That's a picture of them in that frame there. 7 teaching assistants, 5 full-time clerical, 6 full-time operational, 8 part-timers, 1 nurse, 2 guards. And we have been continuing to hire since we opened schools. So we're still in that process and still moving staff into new positions. We held a 2-day new hire orientation on August 26th and August 29th. It was really a wonderful 2 days with our new hires, giving them input into our district priorities and a number of other procedures and priorities for our district. You'll see we had presentations on implicit bias, Tier 1 supports, which has been something we've been talking about for a couple of years, the importance of classroom management. Mr. Tulin provided a wonderful community presentation with the history of Patchogue-Medford that was extremely well received. And actually, anyone who hasn't seen it, Mr. Tulin, I'm sure would welcome the opportunity to provide it because it really is rich in historical perspective for Patchogue-Medford. We also did trainings on cultural competency provided by Mr. Vespi and Ms. Moser, using the books Out of My Mind and Esperanza Rising, and they additionally did a wonderful, they modeled a hexagonal activity that can be easily replicated in the classroom that the teachers found very useful. We provided technology updates, and Dr. Lucas and Mrs. Kennedy provided updates for their respective departments as well. At this time, I'm going to invite up Dr. Lucas, who's going to share a little bit about Dr. Marks and the feedback that was received. And the only other thing that I would say, just to go back for 1 second for the new hire orientation, is we did survey all the new hires, and I did send that in the board update to the board. But if you looked at that feedback, you will see that it was extremely positive across the board for all the presentations that were given. So while it is a lot of information, it is very well received and appreciated by our new hire cohort. Dr. Lucas?
Okay. So we welcome Dr. Bryant Marks, or Reverend Dr. Bryant Marks, to our district for our keynote, as well as some breakout sessions for our staff. The buy-in was there immediately from the staff. I heard from many people that they thought they were going to be resistant to this presentation, And that was not the case at all. Right away, he opened up letting us know he was a New Yorker. So that right there started for some buy-in. He's now transplanted down to Georgia, but gave us very real examples such as Mets or Yankees. What is your bias to that? And removing things of gender or race and getting us to understand what biases we have. He used the term that we are all good people, we just had disproportionate exposure. So our families may have overexposed us to cultural norms or thoughts or processes, which we've then inherited and made our own implicit biases. He let us know that this is a work in progress, not a one and done, gave us homework many, many times throughout the presentation, and shared with us what are the most known implicit biases, believe it or not. Bias towards the elderly is actually the bias that we all do the most out of all the biases that are out there. I could not walk the hall without any staff member telling me he's great when he's coming back. I want more one-on-one time with him. Please have him back. Clerical, guards, operationals, teachers, aides, across all of the units, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive and in line with our district initiatives, 4.5 out of 5 stars. The respondents thought that they were in line. This is just some of the feedback we got from our survey. Dr. Marks did give a reference to, are you a thermostat or a thermometer? And that was much of the feedback. And the way he associated that was, if you're a thermometer, you react to the situation by rising and falling with your emotions. But we want everyone to be a thermostat, where we're the constant, we're keeping steady, and we're setting the tone for those around us. Once again, we ran extended school year. You may remember prior to 2020, we had a contract with BOCES for this, so this was now our 4th year of having our own extended school year for our students that are severely disabled. We did give a survey out to the staff that worked this summer, not just the teachers, but all of the staffs, including the aides, and overwhelmingly, they felt that the communication between teachers, administrators, and parents was 5 out of 5. So the program ran for 30 half days in alignment with state regulations. We had 101 kids, 14 teachers, 17 teaching assistants, and 32 aides for all of our students. It is housed at Barton for a K through 22 experience. All of the students are in the same building. Raider Bean did run this summer, allowing deliveries of cookies and coffees, mostly iced coffees for the summer, to go through all of the classrooms. Our students participated in the announcements at Barton, really allowing for a nice inclusive environment for everyone. Again, the feedback, what worked well, we put new arrival and dismissal procedures in place. Overwhelmingly, the teachers and staff thought that was beneficial for the students. The administrators were out and about in classrooms, hands-on. I spent many days there myself because our students are just infectious, and who does not want to be with our ACES kids? Dr. Hochberg and Mrs. Ott put in assigned playground time. They created a master schedule, almost, if you will, for the summer, something different than years past, which allowed for more equity to accessing the outside for a recess or playground. They put themes in place for each week. And we saw nice collaboration between our staff members. Each class had OT, speech, and counseling push in for the students rather than engage in pull-out sessions. But what to improve? Good news, I heard that Mr. Maisie's approving air conditioning for Mrs. Kennedy, so I'm going to jump on that bandwagon because everyone had air conditioning and more. The teachers are asking for the aides to begin the day prior than the students. That way it gives them ample time to go over behavior intervention plans, classroom routines, strategies. So that's something we may look to next year. It absolutely makes sense. Similar to Mrs. Kennedy's survey feedback, they wish breakfast was served a little earlier. It seemed to be coming about an hour after our students started, so we were already into routine. But we did start earlier than Summer Academy. And just from one of our staff members, they were impressed with how well everyone worked together as a team. Whenever anyone needed assistance, I did see calls for assistance, and everyone was hands-on, ready to jump in and support each other. The program really ran great, and this individual said it was a pleasure to come to work every day, which some of those days were over 95 degrees. That's really nice to hear. Registration. We've been busy. Just as Mrs. Kennedy showed you the Office of Bilingual, all of those new students fed through registration. A little bit of our student enrollment during the 2023 school year. So if you look at the chart on the left, that is all of the months from February 2023 that we enrolled students for the 23-24 school year. We start in February with our kindergarten students, then UPK students. So last year, for the 23-24 school year, we had enrolled 898 students. Well, starting again in February this year, we're only up to September. We've already enrolled 934 new students for the 24-25 school year. So we are seeing a greater number of people coming to enroll. However, we've also done over 1,000 so far transfers, changes of address, and withdrawals. So just as we're adding new students, we are losing some students as well, or they're transferring amongst the district. We are very busy, as I said. We did put a new application in place. It's Calendly. A lot of colleges use this for like college visits, doctor's appointments use this. And what it is right on our central registration webpage. Parents can click on it, and they schedule the day and time that they want to come and see us. So it really eliminates a lot of the back and forth phone calls. What's nice about this is it does translate into 20 languages based on how the parent or family member has it in their browser. And then once we have the person's phone number, it sends text reminders out. Your appointment is at this date and time. Please make sure you bring these documents. Similar to how you get reminders from your physician's office, that's what this application does. The feedback from the parents has been overwhelmingly positive and a much better system for our office than trying to return many phone calls and tracking someone down or language line to try and communicate with the parent. It also allows us to vet out information before people come. We get sometimes addresses from Sachem or South Country or Longwood. Once we have the appointment in our system, we're able to vet it out and realize the person may not be a registrant of our district, allowing them not to come in and waste their time and our staff's time registering them falsely. And Mr. Mazie.
Good evening. Just a quick note, while I was sitting here, I contacted the bank, and unfortunately, I'm a little overdrawn, so I won't be able to provide air conditioning just quite yet for everyone. They said...
You're overdrawn now?
Yeah. They said maybe one or two, not 555, but we'll all work on that. Yeah, it was a very busy summer again in our departments, and what I've included here is just a couple highlights of some of the bigger things, the more notable things that we've done over the summer. One of the first was we had a meeting with all of the administrators in the district, and we covered some of the topics that you see here in a meeting, myself and my operational supervisors. What we do is we take the time to go through significant changes or important reminders, and we do that each summer to share with them and also get feedback from them as to the things that we want to make sure that we keep on the radar that are very important for us entering the school year. So I spent some time going through the different facilities use enhancements that we've been talking about with the board since last year. Some of the things that started with the extracurricular committee and some of the improvements we made not only to policy, but also changes within the MLS program. So things such as the introduction of the new help address line, the frequently asked questions that we put on there, the new clarification regarding Suffolk County Department of Health, food serving regulations, and the reintroduction of the seasonal window that provides for district groups to allow to make their reservations earlier, and just kind of slows the infiltration of the outside groups. We do that on a seasonal basis. Nicole Simonello took time to go through some important purchasing aspects, things related to confirming orders, things that are related to contracts and when those contracts should be, how they should be approved and when they should be approved before we embark on any services or receiving any goods, things of that nature. Mr. Irwin went through some changes with food service. So specifically, we reinforced our participation in the community eligibility provision and how that provides free breakfast and lunch for all of our students, which, like I said, everyone really jumped on last year. But now it has another caveat is that we know that it ties directly into Title I grant funding. At this point in time, we've received no other direction. So we're still looking to get support from our buildings, from our departments, from everyone in the district to make sure we still have parents fill out those forms so that we don't have a drop-off in that aid source just yet. He also introduced the LifeVac choking rescue devices. So this is something that I saw when I was in my CPR training, and I saw this device where, we talked about it here at the board at several board meetings, how students had to be rescued from choking, right? River, and I believe Saxton. And when I saw this during my training, contacted Dan, and we went out and purchased these. These now travel kits are at every cafeteria in the district. And it's a very simple device to use. You put the attachment on, and it's really a suction device to pull the lodged food right out of the victim's throat. So it's really wonderful. Mr. Richroth went through some department updates in technology, specifically laptop repairs and the change that was in board policy with that with regard to the accountability and the fee structure. He also introduced changes to the ticketing system that we put in help requests for all the technology devices. We went through some important Ed Law 2D reminders. That's the law, just to remind you, that covers personally identifiable information and the importance of safeguarding that information and the areas that it covers. And then also ClassLink, which is the single sign-on to all the different technology platforms. Mr. Ahern went through security upgrades, specifically our weapons detection systems and how we're going to be employing those now throughout the school year. We purchased A-frames for the schools to use to notify people approaching the building when they're going to be in use, and then in accordance with board policy, when those announcements are made or not made to staff and the public. And also the vape detectors. The vape detectors, that was part of our ARP, which is also the next thing on the list that Mr. Noonan went through. But this is something that we did as part of that grant to bring in the different security and safety enhancements. So he went through such things as the new classroom locks. The new door safe bolt locks. That's the single button push to throw the deadbolt. The new lockdown shades, the window screens, and as I mentioned, the metal detectors, vape detectors, the security gates. There was a lot going on with that. Some of the other summer projects, though, that Mr. Noonan's staff was involved in directly, these are just a few pictures just to show you some of the things that we've done. But they call it the Barton apartment, but that's the new ACES room that takes place at Barton. That's for the life skills. You'll see there for the housekeeping services, the kitchen services. It's really a beautiful state-of-the-art room. Some of the board members got to see these facilities on our board tour at the end of the summer, one of which was the Oregon Gym, which was just repainted, and the new red, white, and black stripes that are going throughout the building. The Saxton Wrestling Room. So we talked about this, 2 budget cycles ago, how we had the idea to renovate that. That started with Mr. Cox at the time, to take that space and re-renovate that and bring the 3 teams together. And over the course of the 2 budget cycles now, and Mr. Krako's guidance as well, working with my office, we've got now a state-of-the-art wrestling room just below us. And then the one I'm particularly proud of is the high school bathroom renovation. I know some of the board members got to see that day on the walk, but that was all done by our in-house staff to really tear them down and rebuild them up, and really took something that's really a focal point when we have award ceremonies, musicals, all kinds of events at the high school taking place, athletic events, and now we have something that we should be proud of for ourselves and our community to use. And then just, close it out. We're always busy in the business office. The year-end financial audit takes place every year. It is extremely intense for our offices, especially accounting and in particular. But to add on top of that, we had our part-time unit. We had the retro pay. It was a result of our contractual obligation. Once we settled that, we did that retro pay and completed that over the summer. We also processed all of the teacher Amazon orders. So they've really adapted well, but that in and of itself is a very time-consuming process. And then we had our staff rollover every year. You heard Dr. Cohen go over some of the numbers of the new hires. We have to do that to get them set up and also roll over the existing staff to the new rates. And then the last thing was our operational supervisors and myself were busy with Board of Education policy. We reviewed and made updates to over 70 board policies over the summer months. And just a quick shout out to, I'm sorry, I have one more thing. We commenced the bond project meetings, so we're busy. As soon as that was voted on and approved, we commenced a committee that consists of Mr. Noonan, Mr. Manello, Mr. Richroth, Mr. Brinkman, and Mr. Krakow, and myself. but we also have members from our architectural staff, our construction team, and also from ZE Communications. And we meet bi-weekly to go over that, to move that project forward. And the board's going to hear more about that in the upcoming months as to where we stand. You're going to see the new timeline on the website very shortly, because we are moving fast and furious on this, and are probably even ahead of schedule where we thought we'd be. So the last thing I'd say was just a quick thank you to our staff, because it goes without saying that, you know, you heard all the different programs that Dr. Lucas and Ms. Canetti are running, and our staff work in and around these programs to make sure the buildings are ready each and every year, and they did an admirable job, a really great job to make sure what you see today and what the kids saw on day one was ready for the first day of school. Oh, yes. Sure. Oh, I'm sorry, this last, the schematic? Yeah, I just showed, yes. Those are not, we're in the design stage right now. This I happen to have because if you remember, we did this when we did the bond advisory committee, and we did that initial push out of what it could look like. So we just started, you know, tweaking this a little bit, because the athletic projects and the music projects will likely happen faster. So we already had a head start on this, so I thought I would just share it. But to answer your question, once the design phase is completed, which we are nearing the end of for Bay, we're going to share out similar things to show the community what can be expected.
So No, Trustee Krieger, your point is well taken, and so we will add that soon, and I will confirm a date, hopefully the next board meeting, where we can invite and share out where we are. We can also do a presentation to the Bay Elementary School. I don't know if it'll be, we'll talk to Mr. Mendez to see if it's, yeah, he's here. You can share with them at the PTA meeting that we did discuss it tonight, and we can either invite them to the board meeting or bring a presentation to Bay so that they can hear the updates for themselves. They've been more than patient. So, oh, I'm sorry.
So our breakfast at Summer Academy and
Because it's on the agenda, I just think it's
Can we do it in as part of my reports and have her do it then?
Sometimes it arrived at, I would say, 9:30 sometimes arrived at 9.
yeah, I would tell you,
You want to do it? We'll do it.
so, yeah, and one of the things, and certainly I'll work with Mr. Irwin on that. One of the things to remember is our food service department staff, with the exception of Mr. DeLiva and Mr. Bastro, as I say his last name, Gus, right? You know, 2 people. So we don't have, for instance, staff at each building over the summer. They only work, you know, through the school year. So, you know, Mr. DeLiva will you made the deliveries by yourself all summer? So you start up north and go down south? Yeah. We'll certainly, we're going to take this feedback now and work on it to make sure we improve upon that for next year.
It says that the aides, do they not arrive? So what time do the aides go? They don't come when the students go?
The aides get there 15 minutes or a half hour, depending on their shift that we approve them for, before the students. But what the teacher feedback was, they're asking them to start the day before. So go over BIP. So rather than just having them start the first day with students, which we've the day before. Yep. So they are there before the students because we want to make sure they're there before arrival, but giving them time and an opportunity to see where the supplies are in the classroom, where you know, we can have like a break, understand what PEC symbols we're using or symbol sticks, things like that. So we've never had that before with the aides, only the teaching assistants, but we're looking to do that with the aides for next year.
So, yes. For now. So in summary, I just want to thank the assistant superintendents for an amazing report. I'd also like to thank all of our staff members. There were so many administrators that were very busy at work, and I say that there's a lot of them here tonight, but whether you were an administrator or a teacher, a director of security, a guard, a CSEA member, whether operational or clerical or part-time, there were so many of our dedicated staff members out and about, and we could not complete this type of work if we did not truly have a dedicated staff. Trustees, it's important to note just how much of the work is very much aligned with the board's goals and the superintendent goals, so that it drills down and that everybody is aligned with the work that we're doing and the importance of it. So I truly want to thank the board for their support, because we could not do this if the board didn't support the goals that were recommended and approved by the board. And if the board did not approve each of our success plans, we wouldn't be able to move forward. So thank you for that. So any further questions on the presentation? No? Everyone's good? Thank you so much. So I know there have been a number of presentations. It's been presentation heavy, but there have been things that we really want to make sure that we start the year out sharing with the board. And since our meetings are recorded and many of our community members watch these meetings afterwards, it's important to know what's going on. So I'm going to ask lastly for Mrs. Canetti to be very brief. In not going through the presentation, Mrs. Canetti and Dr. Lucas, but perhaps responding to a few of the questions relative to the grading policy that trustees have heard either directly or online, some concerns that were raised. And we can pull up the presentation. If a particular slide speaks to the issue, then we'll speak to that issue. But I think it's important to start, if Mr. President, if I may, with going down the line and trustees asking the questions that they have heard to dispel any misconceptions about the purpose. If you would like me to start with discussing what the purpose and intent of this was, or share it, or ask Mrs. Canetti and Dr. Lucas to share the intent of the change to this grading policy, and then to respond to any questions that the trustees have.
Okay.
Okay? So I will ask Mrs. Canetti and Dr. Lucas to come up and to just briefly share what the intent of the policy change was. I know that generally it was to provide equitable supports to students district-wide through the lens of grading, and how that each teacher has their own perception and how that plays out and impacts students. So Mrs. Canetti and Dr. Lucas, if you come forward and just generally explain from both a special education and general education perspective what the intent of the policy change is or has been, and to dispel any rumors relative to that, and then trustees can ask specific questions. And we are recording this so that this can be dropped into our secondary parent square to share with secondary parents relative to this.
So I did put one of the slides up. This is the presentation that I had shared with the trustees a few months ago and the community, really going back to why we started this policy. And I think the slide really spoke to the consistency between a student who can be enrolled in a course and have 3 different teachers and have very significant different course averages. So I did speak to all the trustees in the community, and I actually had shared an example, and I tried to run through an example of the 3 different students, if we looked at them from a perspective of having 3 different teachers receiving the same exam scores, but what will happen to their final average in each of their classes depending on the teacher that they had based on the teacher's grading policy. And so that is really where we started from a place of equity. It was very imbalanced between teacher to teacher, and it was actually impacting final averages for students depending on the teacher that they had.
Right. If you don't mind, if I can interject
Sure.
a little bit. So you guys did an excellent job. I know you worked very hard with this to, create some type of consistency. And I think that was the main point with this whole thing. And I think create fairness across the board. And I think you did a wonderful job at that. The concerns that I'm hearing, and I just want to, address these concerns from the community is the perception that this is a test-heavy grading policy. It says, was it 50% summative and 30% formative? And I think that's where the community is a little concerned for those kids that aren't good test takers and stuff like that. So I think we also need to outline, what summative and formative is for the community, just to kind of dispel some of those concerns a little bit as well.
Sure, and again, that could depend on the course itself, right? So we actually gave an example within our policy of what could constitute a summative assessment. Summative assessments could be project-based, right, depending on the course. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a pencil and paper test. That may be appropriate in some classes, but not appropriate in other classes. A summative assessment could be an essay that a student is writing. It could be a presentation that a child is given. So we gave examples of summative assessments within the policy, but it also said but not limited to, right? And our policy speaks to the fact that teachers can collaborate with their directors to say, would you consider this summative or, more of an informative assessment?
Because, I'm sorry, go ahead, I apologize.
No, I mean, one of the things that came out was labs, right? So in science clubs, labs are very important. So we heard from our science teachers that, hey, this needs to be more of a summative, our labs are very hands-on projects. So that may be a summative assessment for them in a science class versus a test.
As classwork as well can be considered
Correct.
In the same way. Because I think what some parents are hearing, what I've heard from them, is that they're concerned that it's 50% tests, 30% quizzes, which makes 80% testing, and that's a concern. And I understand the concerns if that's a way somebody decides to go. So that's just wondering if we have some type of
Sure. Obviously, I don't think I think that was happening already.
Yeah.
With our classroom teachers, right? I do think by the nature, I think the purpose of this policy was to bring consistency and to make sure that no one test, whether it be a project-based, a presentation, or an essay, was counting so much that it actually impacted a child's exam average. If you're giving an assessment and within a marking quarter you were only having 3 assessments, those 3 assessments weighed very heavily versus another classroom teacher that gave maybe 8 different types of assessments where kids could actually prove mastery multiple times, right? So I think the policy was actually trying to not do that, to say, hey, no one test should be counting more than 20%. You have to be regularly assessing students. How you assess them really depends on the course that you're teaching.
But we have nothing to quantify how many it is, how large a sample size is going to be. So a teacher, what I'm saying is a teacher has the ability, though, to kind of put a
design
minimal
their
amount
own
of
tests.
assessments on there. And
Yep.
I think that's my concern. I think that's some of the other people's concern that, based on that there is going to be, there can be possibly a larging,
there could be more tests with, right.
Yeah.
And the one
With
thing I
smaller
want,
samples.
right. I think the one thing I will point out is we actually changed something to offset that. For if you read in the letter that I sent to the community, we actually changed when we were assessing kids within a marking quarter. So oftentimes our A day, B day classes run full year. Within the first marking quarter, they're only really seeing their students for 5 weeks rather than 10, and immediately we're trying to say give them a test and give them a grade. We're actually saying no, if you have an A day, B day class and it runs all year, we're only assessing you twice, the second quarter and the fourth quarter. So we're not overly testing students, and we're spreading it out over 10 weeks rather than over 5 weeks. So the policy actually addresses that. It gives those teachers more time rather than trying to cram in so many different assessments within a shorter period of time, if that makes sense.
It does.
I'm going to just jump on Fran here. I think the problem lies in a misconception of what formative and summative means, because I'm getting, we're moving away from standardized tests, but now we're making, all of our classes be high-stakes testing, and we're trying to set up our IEP and 504 special ed kids to fail. And I sat on this committee for 2 years, and I'm trying to wrangle misconceptions. I think maybe what Dr. Jones just came around and said is maybe we need to do just a breakdown. This is what this is. This is formative. This is summative. They got the letters. They saw the letters. I mean, I was getting comments from kids that have high schoolers who've had 2 that went through the school already, through the system, and they're like, this is crazy. And they're a special ed teacher in another district. So I just think it went a little bit over people's heads, and we need to break it down into smaller information.
And I would encourage the staff to go to the link that actually directs them back to our policy, because it does give them some examples of formative and summative. That was included in our letter that actually brings them directly to the board policy.
I was sent the link too, and told that they can't make sense of the link, again, from a special ed teacher in another district.
Can you just give an example of besides quizzes, what else is formative?
Again, in formative assessment are quick little check-ins, right? So it could be, you mentioned a quiz, right? But a teacher may do, I'm just going to give an example of a Kahoot, right? Where kids are doing that. It could be that kids are doing just a draft of an essay that they're, grading an essay, and at various points within that final document, they're submitting little pieces of their work, right? We're just checking in on them. And then a summative, like I gave you an example. Our science teachers felt labs are actually summative assessment. It wraps up a lot of the learning. So in science classes, a lot of their summative assessments may be the labs that they're doing in their science class, not necessarily just tests, but it could be a lab, all right? In a math class, it could be a little 10-point quiz. It could be an extended response question, one question where we're just checking in to see, did kids master this concept and are able to apply it to a specific, life example within, I would say an extended response is like a multiple step word problem where it's just a quick check-in, and we call those like exemplars. We're asking kids if they can do a multi-step word problem.
Thank you. I think what I'm picking up is that we may be using words that non-educators are not understanding, and that's creating stress. That's been an issue for a long time, using words that non-educators don't understand. So I think that we have some work to do there. There's room for improvement there. Also, I wonder. I remember hearing the first time that we went through this that you explained it, which I think is a good rework. I really do. But that this is also department specific, so it's not.
Correct.
The Board of Education and the district office have said this is the way it is. Each department then
has their own opportunity. Yep. And I actually
posted
posted that on the website too. So I actually created an Excel sheet for transparency, so every parent can go on to see what does English 11, how are they assessing kids? How are English 12 assessing kids? So even within a department, every course had the opportunity to have a very specific grading policy. So it was the same course within the same department.
So, Trustee Janet.
I think the other concern too was the fact that they take like very short tests. So it's like almost like you get a 10-question test, you get 2 wrong. So I think for a lot of the students there, that was kind of the issue of more of the anxiety that was going on because, you know, they're only taking 10-question test or sometimes a 5-question test. And so as it gets higher, you know, now their grades are going to get lower because, you know, so I think that was also their concern for that.
So, trustees, what I hear is an opportunity for us to take the community engagement feedback, which is what it is. They have voiced confusion or being unclear with the new policy, and it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we clarify. And sometimes that requires multiple discussions to unpack it. We had a similar situation with the Raider Academy. We had to talk about it multiple times in multiple settings in order for everybody to feel comfortable with this process. So what I'm hearing is that we have some more work to do in clarifying. I would ask that you give us an opportunity to take this back as a cabinet, discuss it also with our administrators, and develop a plan whereby our teachers can be very clear.
I was just going to add, and I sat on the committee with you, and I did all the work, and I could speak about this till I'm blue in the face. But I'm hearing from high school students and high school parents that the teachers are not on board, and they're saying that the directors just are telling them what to do. And I keep explaining to people that we had students on the committee, we had teachers on the committee, we've had multiple discussions amongst ourselves. So I don't, again, I think people need very clear, concise information to understand things.
Yeah, and I would say that we have some more work to do with making sure that all of our stakeholders are very clear with the expectation, the intentions, and change takes work. To communicate, it takes time to vet the process and to tweak if necessary. We've been down this road many times when there's something new, but I think that all the feedback is very helpful, and we will take this all back and try to begin to make sure that we dig deep into making sure there's clarifications with our teachers, the delivery with our administrators, how we deliver to the parents so that we can be on board with this. Nobody has done anything wrong. It just takes some time to get accustomed to a new process. So we will work on that, and we will send back, even if it requires us to do some type of session where we speak directly and respond to their questions and talk to them. If you just give us a minute to figure out the best delivery mechanism, we're happy to do that. And so we'll talk offline if that's okay, and bring a plan back to the trustees and the community.
And I think it just to share, myself and Dr. Lucas, as well as Mr. Tulin and members of his staff, we actually met with the high school staff to get some feedback, and we actually followed up. And if you remember, I actually proposed some changes to the original policy based on the feedback that we received from that meeting, and that was embedded in the feedback we got from the high school staff, which really is what impacts the children the most at the high school, right? And I know Dr. Lucas met with the special education even beyond that. So in terms of teachers, we have been listening and having meetings with them and make some significant changes based on the feedback that we're getting from the teachers.
I think what I'm hearing, though, is that although we have placed things on the website and had conversations. Things get lost in the sauce sometimes, and not everybody reads what's up on the website. And of those that do read, some have a different take on what they've read, and we need to clarify it. And so, once again, we will do what we need to do and bring back a game plan with a date for which we will outreach to the community and share and make sure that we clarify. That will be forthcoming very soon.
I just want to, I stand behind the policy. I worked on it for 2 years. I understand it. I've spoken to Dr. Dr. Lucas and I were talking about it last Friday night at like 10 o'clock at night about it. And, I mean, it's just dispelling myths and rumors and, so misunderstandings. So,
right.
I back it and I'm with you guys. I just think there's some stuff out there that we just have to clear up.
Duly noted, and we appreciate the feedback of both the community and the trustees, and we will get right on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 9, which is public comments on the reports. Dr. Cohen?
Hi.
I know,
Any
I
members?
have 4 minutes now, right?
3 minutes. Sorry, Pam. 3 minutes.
Come on, Dennis
Name-
said 4. He said that was his last will and testament message to me. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Very good.
Just state your
Welcome
name.
back, Pam Peterson. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for those reports. I have to say, as a parent of my youngest going into the high school, it was a very smooth transition going into the high school as a 9th grader. She got lost once, so thank you to everybody there for all of that. I just want to get right into the grading policy because I too have been sitting on instructional for a lot of years, and I also heard a lot of these same questions, and I also had some teachers speak to me. So I'm not sure if there was professional development for this, if it was discussed with every teacher. One thing I just want to ask, Lori, that I don't remember, by the way, I love your shoes, but one thing I wanted to, are the Regents exams now included in their final grade?
The Regents exams have always been included in their, it counts as 8%. So that's always been the case. We're actually one of the lowest. Remember years ago, it actually, I think at one point may have been 20%. Then it was 10%. Now it's down to 8%.
Okay.
But I do think a lot with the Blue Ribbon Committee and the information that we're going to be hearing from the state, a lot's going to change within the next 2 years as it pertains to graduation requirements.
Right. Okay. Because I didn't remember the Regents being a part of the
Yeah,
final grade.
final
because
average.
sometimes we wouldn't get the Regents until later.
No, that's
Okay.
been traditionally.
Okay, so that was something. But I think that, something that we did discuss is that the bottom line with all of this, through assessments and everything, is for the students to understand the material, to master the material that is given for them to be able to be successful. And I think that's what the teachers are focusing on. I think that as an instructional committee, we need to reevaluate this, like maybe through a survey with the teachers and parents, to reevaluate this grading system. I think that Bernadette said it very, very perfectly clear that there are educational terms that are used that unless you're in education, you don't know what they mean. So I think that is something that can be confusing and intimidating to parents. A policy comes out, they look at a policy, they see a whole lot of numbers and a whole lot of change, and they don't understand it. So I think maybe, that would be better to clarify in that way, because honestly, telling somebody to go to the website and find the link is even challenging in itself to try to find the policy. So I think that maybe if we try to clarify this for parents, and maybe Teresa and I can kind of help with that with council, to maybe get some parent meetings together where we can possibly have a grading policy forum. I know that you host these, and not all the time do we get, the people that we need. But there has to be a point where we say, listen, we're providing all this for you. You also have to take a part in learning what it is. But, you know, again, I think maybe for instructional, we can also reevaluate it and ask the teachers.
Learning workshops we're trying to do each month for parents, I have a notation that this may be one of those first workshops that we do.
Yeah.
Just to educate people on the formative and summative assessments. Again, you know, it doesn't speak to written tests, like an oral presentation, a PowerPoint. Many of the things that are more project-based and hands-on can fall into those categories.
Right,
So
right. I know. Was there professional development for the teachers on
30
this?
seconds.
we had, as I said, in terms of professional development, we've reviewed the policy in small groups by department. I myself met with all the teachers. Dr. Lucas met with all the teachers. At the end of the year, last year, all the directors met with the teachers to start crafting their policy. So I would say that we met with the teachers multiple times on this policy, yes.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Any other comments? Okay. So now we'll move on to item number 10, the approval of the consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
Who was the first? I'm sorry. Kelly?
Kelly, and then Francis.
And we also need a roll call vote on the consent agenda, including items A through Y. Just give me 1 second. Vice President Andrade?
Yes.
Trustee D'Onofrio?
Yes.
Trustee Krieger?
Yes.
President Negrin?
Yes.
Trustee Salazar?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Jennings?
Yes.
And the consent agenda was approved.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 11, which has actually been renamed or redesignated. It's going to be items that have been added to the consent agenda for a separate vote. Dr. Cohen, you want to take that?
Yes, first and foremost, there were no items removed from the consent agenda, but there was one item added. It was to appoint the district clerk. I'm going to read the resolution for that. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby appoints Teresa DeLiva to the position of district clerk, effective September 30th, 2024, for completion of a one-year term ending June 30th, 2025, at the prorated salary of $85,000. I need a motion to approve the district clerk.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Bernadette, thank you. And we just need,
Yeah. Bring her up, take a picture. After we get to approve.
all trustees in agreement?
Yes.
Yes. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so now
I would ask now that our district attorney, Matthew Menard, swear in Teresa DeLiva as the district clerk effective September 30th.
Yeah.
Sir. It's in her report. It's in her report. No, not yet. We have to do first reading. Can we take a picture with her? It's all the employees. Okay, our next item is number 12, information items. A, policy first reading. These policies will be circulated for first reading. If there are no changes, the policies will be included on the October 28, 2024 Board of Education agenda. The only one for this month, which is a breather for us, 61456, attendance, deportment, and academic eligibility for participation in extracurricular activities. Number 13, we had no actions arising out of executive session. And number 14 is superintendent's report. Dr. Jones.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Good evening again. First, I'd like to congratulate our newly appointed district clerk. I know you'll do an amazing job. You're a hard worker, dedicated employee for 15 years, truly invested in this district, and we look forward to welcoming you on to this very important position. You certainly have big shoes to fill, but I know that you are more than capable and competent, and we look forward to your great success and many rewarding years in this district. Congratulations. So also, we have so many administrators here this evening, so I am most delighted to announce that we have appointed, the board has approved my recommendation to appoint Christy Pettialeccia as the new assistant principal of Eagle Elementary. So we are very excited for her. It's absolutely so well deserved. I have a statement that is prepared to go out, and the coordination up here behind the scenes, you cannot imagine. We didn't want to announce to the staff before this was approved, but I want to read what will be going out to summarize who she is and how delighted we are for her to be appointed. Dear Eagle Elementary School community, and this will, Dr. Cohen will be sending out simultaneously to the staff in a few minutes while I'm sending a message simultaneously to the Eagle community in a few minutes. We are happy to announce the administrative appointment of Christine Pettialeccia as Eagle Elementary School Assistant Principal effective September 17th. For over a decade, Ms. Pettialeccia has served our district as a dedicated educator, establishing a strong, inclusive educational community and fostering impactful relationships with students, families, and staff in all of her roles. Ms. Pettialeccia was previously the district elementary STEM department chairperson, and preceding that role, she was building STEM and instructional coach and the building curriculum and instructional liaison at Barton Elementary School. I could go on and on. The message is rather lengthy because there's so much positive messaging to report. So we're very, very excited about this appointment, and we know, Christy, you will do great things. Eagle has lost a great man And once again, big shoes to fill, Christy, but I have every great confidence that you will do an amazing job in your new role. Congratulations. I know that I had sent an announcement. We have also Stephen Santacroce, who is now, he's here. So for the record, I will celebrate and salute his appointment to Barton Elementary School. I don't have the luxury right now pulling up that long announcement of how well-deserved that position is, but for everyone in attendance, just trust and believe he is very well deserving of leading Barton Elementary School. And I see Francis here, and I didn't announce that. Anybody else new? I think everybody else has been around a while. Francis, we welcome you. I hear so many amazing things about how refreshing it is for you to be on board and how excited everyone is and delighted with the changes that you are making to improve all of the instructional protocols within your department. So we're excited about the new energy and what it's going to mean for our district. So congratulations to all of our new administrators. And thank you so much for so many coming out from PMAA. I did challenge them as part of our community engagement to be more visibly present, and they took it very seriously, and I couldn't thank them enough for being present tonight. So thank you. So just a few other quick announcements. I think Mrs. Canetti already mentioned that as part of our community engagement goal, we have been taking measures to do whatever necessary to make community connections. So going to the library as opposed to always having things on district property, if that's what helps to make some of our community members more comfortable, then that's what we'll do. And so we were delighted to hear so many families came out for a recent Spanish-speaking family evening at the library with over 200 families represented. That is an amazing accomplishment, and we expect to continue those types of initiatives. There was a question at the last board meeting about who receives AED training for the school year, and I just wanted to respond to that question for the record, that all of our coaches are required to be CPR and AED certified in accordance with state regulations, and Human Resources also ran a mandated training for all administrators. Also, Sean Harris offers CPR and AED training as part of the district professional development offerings, and our nurses are also required to have their annual training. So that responds to a question from last month's meeting. I also wanted to announce for those that may not be aware that Inspector Sumwalt is retiring. And I'm not sure if you all were aware of that. He is the inspector of the 5th Precinct. He has worked collaboratively with our district during countless times of crisis, and with our resource officers and John Airhorn, they have been in the trenches supporting our school district. He has really, really worked hard, even when he had been out on sick leave at a time when the district was in crisis. He was still responding to my texts of all days and times of the evening to make sure that we were supported. So I just wanted to publicly wish him well, and on behalf of the district, we'll certainly write a letter wishing him well on his retirement. So I did want to publicly acknowledge that. And there is going to be 2 ribbon cuttings. One has already been marked for Eagle Elementary. It's on the 19th at 10:15 a.m. There's a new front entranceway, warm and welcoming. It's absolutely lovely. I intend to make it my business to get over there, so I will provide more information for any trustees that are available to attend. And there is also one at, it's going to be toward the end of September. It's going to be at Barden. Dr. Lucas, do you want to just...
So tentatively, right now, it is scheduled for September 30th. I'm just looking to confirm that with Azaria from Z&E. We are opening up the ACES apartment. Mr. Mazie gave you a little snapshot of what that looks like. It is a fully functioning studio apartment that all 3 of our ACES buildings at the elementary level will be able to access. I do have to give a shout out to Dr. Goldstein and Mr. Mazie's crew because they were instrumental in making this room come to fruition.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lucas. I believe that I have already thanked all the unions that are present today, and I think in our back-to-school report, you could see how busy we all were to prepare for our students. I think that is all I have to report for this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Okay, so we're going to move on to item number 15. Discussion topics, some of the items that the board would like to present and discuss. The first one up is going to be board committee requirements. So I'm going to hand that over to Vice President Andrade.
So before you do that, we do have the memo if you still need it for the purposes of, yeah. Do you need me to just put this in context before you start the discussion? So the purpose of what we're about to talk about is for criteria for our various committees, whether board level, district level, whoever our volunteers are, if they're students and they are receiving service credit, there should be a criteria for how many meetings they attend in order to qualify for truly being a member of that committee. Likewise, for volunteers for any of our district or committees or board level, what's up for discussion is when we recognize them at the end of the year, what constitutes recognition? If you've been to 1 out of 10 meetings where some have really pressed their way, no matter how busy they are, we want to distinguish, not that we don't appreciate all service, but distinguish what constitutes a recognition or what constitutes something worthy of a student getting service credit for attending 1 meeting out of a year versus attending 50% or more. So the assistant superintendents were charged with coming up with some recommendations to provide, and so I have provided the board with a memo from them with some suggestions for their consideration, taking all or none.
Okay, so I'm going to just chime in. And so when I originally brought this up, I think what I've seen in committees, board committees, so for me, this is solely about board committees. I don't have any jurisdiction to say in administration, how you guys want to have your requirements is fine. Board committees are different. So just streamlining attendance so that if a student is using this for Honor Society or for whatever service, there's a requirement. You have to be 75% attendance for a meeting, something like that. I think that's very valid. I think all of us have experienced that. Sometimes students will sign up for 5 committees and show up to 1. We don't want that happening. But there's a big list here, and where I'm hesitant with this list is I do not want to deter our community members from participating and start taking attendance for them, or if you don't come, you can't participate, or if like at the bottom here, to me, feels like a grading policy, actively participate in community discussions and activities. I mean, I feel like people either, if they want to participate, they participate. If they want to just listen, they listen. Like, I don't think we should be monitoring that or even thinking about any of it.
Well, I just want to clarify, so from the perspective, I get what you're saying. Trustee Andrade, I think the intent of that is that, sometimes you have someone that may miss a couple of meetings, and then when they come to the meeting, they want to be brought up to speed, and it takes away the time from the work that has already been done, and then we have to re-explain, so it makes it less productive.
I mean, I think we have minutes that we all take, so if the minutes are sent out to the committees, then we can all, I think all of us, we can explain at the beginning of the meeting that we'd like you all to read the minutes if you're going to miss a meeting. I just, again, I don't want to say to someone, well, if you can't come to 95% of the meetings, then you can't be on the committee. If they can come to 3 meetings and they have valuable input,
But can it be that maybe that whatever they come, but when it comes to recognition for...
I mean, that's fine if we want to make I don't know, if we want to make a criteria for recognition, that's up to everybody else too, I think.
If I may, I'd like to say I don't really have any problem with this. As someone who, before board service, I served on a committee. Okay, so here's some basic understandings of what you're expected to do when you sit on a committee. It's pretty basic, like participate. It's pretty basic. And I don't think there's anything that, this would not have stopped me, and I don't think it will stop any other person, adult, from joining.
Is this more for students, or?
No, it's for both, for community members also, and arriving more than 30 minutes late or leaving more than 30. I mean, there's been numerous times in my committee where parents are leaving for games or coming late because they're coming from a game. I mean, it was my experience, our experience, I don't think, it wasn't disruptive for us.
But I thought that this came up as a topic for students that were on multiple committees for resumes and college applications, and now it's turned into a full-blown everybody with a busy schedule and their input.
So there were let me just clarify, there were 2 issues. There were some of my committees where there was a student participant that showed up for the first meeting and then was able to use that for the rest of the year that they participated, but they didn't come to any other meetings. So we value student voice. We want to know that the student, before we start, is committed to this process so that we can get valuable feedback from the student because they want to be on the committee. So it's really just trying to consider some ground rules for what we're looking for so that they understand what is required, if you will, to be on this committee, so they know what they're getting in for.
I mean, sorry.
I don't want it to feel punitive, although maybe that's how it's landing. But I had one student that said last year when I recognized her, she didn't know why she was being recognized because she didn't even know which committee she was getting recognized for. And she returned it saying, I can't in good conscience accept it because I only went to one committee.
Well, then that's our job then to do a better job with attendance and we do sign in. So if someone's getting...
Right, but because there's no uniformity of expectations, you can have one saying, well, why is she getting recognized and I'm not? And so this provides an opportunity to unify and uniform the expectations.
I think the hardest part is missing 2 consecutive meetings can result in removal from the committee. A lot of our students are athletes or are in band or chorus, and sometimes our meetings fall on that. So it's sometimes that they can't make a meeting due to that part, because it's hard to schedule these meetings. So I don't know if it could be an excused absence, because, but then it falls into like a kind of like a school thing more than that, because that's.
Maybe can we
that's
change
hard.
the word can to may?
No, but let me just say for the record, there's enough activity to go around, and there are many students that are undersubscribed, and there are many students that are oversubscribed, and they can't physically commit because of their music and athletic obligations. And if they can't, it really is okay, because there are other students that are willing and have the time, because they don't have the overcommitted schedule and they are more available. So just kind of spreading the wealth a little bit, so that we can really have student voice on our committees.
I mean, for what it's worth, the Board of Education has a practice that if you miss X number of meetings consecutively, you can be removed. Like, their unexcused absences. So, like, to put that onto a Board of Education committee, I don't see anything terrible about it.
All right. So, I think you're talking about 2 different things. And I've said this, Dr. Jones, so everybody in the board knows what I've commented on this. I'm totally against this requirements from a board committee standpoint. I think it's ridiculous to start to ask volunteers that they have to have requirements for volunteering, However, from the student side of it, it's not a board committee requirement. It's a requirement of the Honor Society or any of the academic parts of their student life that says, okay, they're going to be recognized for being part of a board committee or any volunteer activity that they do, that they have to put in a certain amount of hours. Now, we as committees every committee records their attendance. So if the principal of any of the schools or the high school asks for a copy, and we can do that as an automatic thing, saying we'll send you a copy of all the students who are on committees, and here's the attendance of them at the meetings. If they showed up to 1 meeting and that accounted for an hour of volunteer service, then okay, they get an hour of volunteer service. If that committee runs 3 hours, I hate to say sometimes committee meetings do run a little bit longer, then that's 3 hours of service. I mean, that's very, very easy for us to support the students in that way. As far as community members, look, if you were on a committee and you're being recognized and you really didn't do anything for that committee, I'll tell you my experience, and that's that somebody shows up to 1 meeting and makes an excellent recommendation or comment, but they only showed up to 1 meeting. So we're not going to recognize that person, but that person made a huge contribution to that committee. But now we're not going to recognize that person because they only showed up to 1. And then I know we have community members who are on several committees. And we went through this a few years back where we had a tremendous amount of applicants, which of course, unfortunately, we don't have as many applicants as we had at that point, which is another question. And we had to start to decide, we're going to have to not allow so many people to be on a committee. And there was good reasons for that, right? You can't have 300 people on a committee. It doesn't make any sense. Again, that didn't become policy. That just simply became something we decided we were going to do that year to kind of segregate how many people could be on a committee. So I know there's 7 of us, and we all have our opinion, and that's fine. That's why this board works. My opinion is I'm a no to any kind of board requirements for Board of Education committees. If you want to volunteer and you want to come to a meeting and be part of that meeting, we're going to try to make it as rewarding for you to be part of that committee, and always make sure that we're respecting the committee members' input. And like I said, sometimes that's one person showing up to one meeting and they make a great comment. Some come in and they don't say a word. They come in and they just sit there for the whole time, and they're absorbing. And that's fine too. Because, you know, part of what we said we wanted from committees was to have more of the community involved in what's going on in the background in each of these different subjects, whether it's finance or it's instructional or it's buildings and grounds, whatever it happens to be. You know, wow, that's great. We can have people that understand better what the school district is doing. And, you know, we always say we think that if people don't show up to committees, it's because, hey, we're doing a good job. Nobody needs to show up and question anything. And maybe that's true. You know, or maybe just everybody's super busy and they just can't be involved, and maybe they're volunteering on the PTA level or some other level, and they put their time in there. I always said that there's that small group of people that are always there volunteering, right? We all know this. We've all been through this.
Right.
Probably that's us in some respects. At Oregon's back to school night, I would stand up as the president of the Fathers Club, and I would ask in the auditorium for every parent to give me 1 hour. Just give me 1 hour. You know what we could do if every parent in this room gave me 1 hour? No, it was the same 12 to 20 dads that participated every time. It was just, that's the way it worked. And that's the way it works probably with all the schools at some level. So to start coming up with requirements that people now have to meet and kicking people out, because that's what's going to happen. You go, oh, I'm sorry, you didn't make the meetings, you're out. Or I'm sorry, you don't get recognized. Yeah, but I attended 2 meetings. I'm sorry, that's not 75%. You're out. I'm a no.
May I make a suggestion? Can we, thank you. I'd like to suggest that maybe these are for the students, we have the requirements, like, because there's resumes that need to be built, and some kids are trying to build resumes on things that they're not able to fulfill the commitment that they made. But with we decided that several years ago when we had the 4,000 people wanting to be on X committees. That was a meeting. And we determined at that time we would not restrict the number of people that wanted to be on a committee, under no circumstances. Anybody that wants to serve on a committee can serve on a committee, and I think that's a good practice. I also recall several years ago, there was conversations around, before my time on the board, the expectation was, there are expectations for people who serve on the board. So maybe this is not requirements, and yes, we're going to kick you off but if you're going to serve on a board, here's the expectations. You're going to show up, and you're going to participate. And if you can't get there because X number of reasons, we, you know, as adults, we send emails saying, I'm not going to make the board meeting, make the committee meeting, and it's just, as adults, that's how you communicate. And the kids were teaching how to participate in this kind of a process. Does that help?
So just to clarify, Bernadette, so board members' requirements to be on the Board of Education is New York State law. That's not our policy. We don't set a policy for that. And even within that standpoint, it's still only a recommendation of whether a board member misses 3 consecutive meetings without making any kind of notification that they wouldn't be there. It's not like if you miss 3 meetings, you're out.
No.
But there is New York State law.
Interruption of duty.
It could be, right? And again, the board could then recommend to the commissioner that a board member be removed. And then it's the commissioner that will make that final determination.
Right.
So it's not our policy that sets that up.
No.
Just to clarify.
No. Thank you for that. So I think we have 2 points of discussion here. First is the rules for the kids, and the second is the expectations of the adults. Is that where we're at here?
Yeah, and again, on the side of the students, I think that I agree. The students have requirements. If it's an honor society program, and the honor society says you got to get X amount of service time for something, and the students have to bring back a form or something. I mean, we do that. Remember, we used to have, and Dr. Jones, you probably remember, right? We used to have students had to go to board meetings. It was one of the activities they could do. And we would sit here, and at the end of the meeting, the students who were in attendance at the end had to come up. We had a sign, and it was actually, I think, Dennis, the district clerk, who was able to sign and say, maybe the superintendent, not necessarily board members, right?
Yes.
That wasn't our policy. That was the policy coming from the, so I agree. If there's anything we can do to help those students to gain their service time by recording the time that they serve on our committees, then I'm all for that. But again, it's not our requirement of how much time they have to spend.
So just for clarification purposes, so I think we're clear that as it relates to students, we will do what we need to do to talk with the Honor Society to make sure that that's clarified so that students are truly providing the service if we're signing off. As it relates to district level committees that are not board committees, we can have some type of similar protocol that works for us as district leaders. So, and we will do something similar, maybe soften the tone, but similar, so that when we meet, the ground rules are clear for everyone and they understand what the commitment is, the time frame, etc. It would just mean that any board committees will just be different than everything else, and that is fine if that is the board's pleasure.
So just to clarify, what's the other committees you're talking about?
So we have many district level committees that meet. The charge could be an AIS committee. It could be a district DCEP development committee. It could be any particular committee that anybody, special education, audit, anything else that we have that are district type of committees that are not board committees, we would have the license to create expectations. So it would only be the board level committees that would be different than all the other expectations.
So you're not asking the board to approve the requirements that you're setting for those district committees. That's something you're just doing on your own.
I can do that on my own. I wanted to bring it to the board such that there would potentially be a discussion about everything being in alignment, but if the board feels some level of discomfort with their committees having any kind of ground rules or expectations, then I am fine with providing some clarifying points so that the other committees that are district operated, I would be able to feel comfortable when I send the volunteer recognition that they have met the requirements. And then the board members, committees, I'll just send everybody a thank you note and acknowledge anyone that signs up.
So I think that the, and again, just, Frank, just to clarify, the audit committee is New York State law, okay? That does not fall under our requirements. That's New York State law that sets the audit committee. So we can't put that into the requirements. Right, that's not a committee that you can rule over. That's totally separate. Yeah. Understood. Well, we should, of course, recognize them. But the other thing, Donna, you're talking about was the whole aspect of expectations, right? Which is not a requirement, but we do that. One of the things that was requested way back when was to, and we did, I think President O'Brien actually, I think it was he that put out a piece, or was it you, Kelly, that did it, where we talked about what each committee did and what you'd be, again, not required to do, but what it's all about. Do you really want to be on the finance committee? Because this is what we do. And it's like, oh, maybe that's not something I want to do. So, we had talked about that. That's fine. I mean, we should always be putting out, and I think maybe we do in the application say, this is this committee and this is what this committee does, plus this is when this committee meets. We don't do that part. Okay, well, I mean, that also. You did, right? You did the live thing. It was Kelly. Okay, and that's good because we want people to be able to participate, but not to give them requirements of participation.
So then,
If I may, I think if we have practices, policies, come up with whatever word you want to come up with, so it's not our Board of Education policy, but I think it makes sense to, if we're deciding that the students should have certain criteria, fine. And then that could be like for Board of Education committees as well. That needs to be. That's our committee.
But that's not, we don't have the justification to tell the students what they have to do to be on a committee. I mean, you understand
Yeah,
that
we do.
they're getting credit from the Honor Society, not from the Board of Education. And if
There are students that do
then
this
what are
that
they-
are not on Honor Society.
then
and
what
they're
are they
not doing it
getting?
to get Honor Society credit.
They don't get into Honor Society until May.
Right, but what do
That's
they
not
get?
an- It's not just an Honor Society
And
issue,
same thing with a
Tom.
community member. What does the community member get? They get a little certificate at the end of the year saying they participated in the.
They can put it on their college resume.
I feel
That they
very much like
participate
we're
in a-
beating
in a
this horse
committee?
to death.
Listen, I think.
It's almost like golf. I think you have to, like,
The issue here is that
be honest.
the committees are trying to move stuff forward, correct? That's what our charge is. And I think that the way a committee works is consistency. And if you have the same people on a regular basis and they put the input in, then you can be consistent. When they're not consistent, I don't think it works. I mean, you think it makes a difference?
Oh, I remembered what I wanted to say.
I mean, it's always better when people participate.
The other thing that, when I was first, it was a while ago, the practice was, you are on a committee, and you get to vote if there is a vote made during the committee. If you wish to, as a community member, come to said committee meeting, you can come to any committee, any community member can come to any committee meeting,
As a
whether
guest.
they wish to be on the committee or not.
They're a guest.
And if there's ever a vote within the committee, only the committee members get to vote on it.
that is correct.
That was the practice for a long time, yeah?
Speak, not really voting, it's speaking.
That's correct.
Right, that's
Right.
correct.
They
But
attend
again,
as a guest.
the voting aspect of this is more of a consensus of a recommendation to the board.
Right.
Right? So just so
Right.
we're all clear.
Yeah, so,
Committees
yeah,
have
they're not
absolutely
doing any-
no power other than to make a recommendation to the Board of Education.
Right.
So you can
we all
call
know
it a
this.
vote, but it's not like it's a vote.
No,
to-
it's
Vote to
it's just
move the-
within the committee to move
Vote
it
to move
forward
the
or whatever.
suggestion. Okay.
So, and you can come and you can learn, but as you have to be a member of said committee, to become a member of the committee, it's within this period of time. So if someone didn't make it onto the committee, but they want to learn more about the legislative something or other, they can come in December and just listen.
They missed the deadline.
Right, but that's the practice of the committee. If the practice of the committee is, we want our kids to be here for X number of time in order to be acknowledged for whatever reason that they need acknowledgement, and we want our adults to be here for an X number of, this is basic to me. If you're gonna say, I want to be a member of a committee, this is some basic expectations. This isn't, we're gonna slap your hand and send you home if you miss the third meeting.
Yes, it does. It says you're off.
Oh, it doesn't, okay. This is, I feel we have beaten this horse into the ground. Okay.
No, this wasn't a vote, it was a discussion.
It was a discussion about practices.
So then as of now, we're not putting this into place, but we could still talk about it,
So
correct?
the only reason I brought it up for this meeting is because the committee deadlines are September 30th. So trustees will start meeting with their committees once the roster is finalized September 30th. So having this conversation would have prepared for prospective meetings that will start in October. And then there would be alignment of purpose and charge, et cetera, expectations.
But Dr. Jones, you're putting this out for your district committees, either or, right? Like,
Yes.
It's a done thing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm putting it out for those that are under my domain, And so if the trustees want to do something different, I wanted to share with you what I was doing so you would have the opportunity to opt in or out. No pun intended.
Opt in or out. All right, so we can continue discussing this.
Yeah. Can I just ask a question about, since we're talking about committees? So do we need to approve the committees before we can start with our committees, correct? Is that?
Approve them?
Like,
Yeah, we're supposed to put them up for approval. So
What do you mean?
The deadline is September 29th or September 30th. We cannot start meetings until October 28th when we approve them at our board meeting.
Well, can you approve them on the 7th
Yes,
when
that's what I was
you
gonna
have
say.
your
Yes.
meeting?
We do it on
yeah,
the 7th.
that's okay, right?
So
Okay.
where the intent will be to cut off on the 30th, approve on the 7th, so you don't lose a second month of school,
We don't lose October.
and then you can proceed
Good.
in October.
Good.
So we will make sure that happens. We would just need your permission to make October 7th work session a voting meeting, which I will advertise in the, well, now I have
There you go.
a
Careful
district
what you ask
clerk.
for.
So we'll, yeah.
Okay, we're good?
Yes.
All right, we're going to move on? All righty. We already talked about the grading policy, so the next thing up is the New York State School Boards Association resolutions. So those of you that have been following along over the last couple of months, actually started last year, we submitted 2 resolutions for consideration at the 2024 annual business meeting and to be adopted by the voting delegates. And we had our request for NYSBA to advocate for the minimization of field testing and school district decision-making rights to refuse to participate in field testing without penalty from the New York State Education Department. That has been recommended, so that resolution is moving forward right now. The second one, which was that we advocate for 30 to 40 minutes per day of recess time being officially recognized, to be recognized as an alternative form of instructional time in elementary school and counted towards mandated minutes. Schools can then allocate adequate time for recess each day to ensure the social and emotional well-being and the whole child development of their students. So we submitted that one, and Trustee Jennings was actually in the meeting when this came up, and it wasn't supported. But, Ms. Jennings, would you please share what the conversation was?
So this one is part of the ones that's not recommended. In order for it to get recommended, someone has to make a motion and then second it in order to bring it to the table. If not, it doesn't even bring to the table. Aside from that, at the Nassau-Suffolk legislation meeting, they talked about it, and some of them were on board with it, but they say it's still a little dicey just because you're putting recess and instructional time, and some teachers may feel that it's going into instructional time and you're taking away from that kind of freedom that the students have, and where are they going to fit it in, because it's now taken away from that free time that the kids have to kind of play more than, so they were all kind of on board with it, kind of in a way. So it's kind of,
they're thinking that we want recess to be instructional, not.
No, to be considered instructional.
I
well,
know,
you want to be recognized in a sort of form of instructional time.
an alternate form of instructional times.
Right.
Right.
But some people might, they're looking at it like, yes, it's great, but it's still on that, the kind of like that teeter-totter of.
Does a teacher need to be in front of them doing something?
Correct, because it's like instructional. So a teacher might have to, they're thinking that maybe it will have to come up with some kind of plan to go out there and play and kind of like give them, rather than that child having that free access to come up and kind of play. But they were in kind of, at least Nassau-Suffolk, I know DEI had no position for it just because it's not kind of in their wheelhouse. So if you see that the DEI says no, opposition, it's just because it doesn't have to deal with them. But it was a hard sell on either side.
I also made a couple of phone calls to find out what I could find out about this, because I'm the one that's going to need to say, to try to move it forward during the meeting. And the feedback that I've been getting is it's not just, like, we would very much wish to be able to have more flexibility with recess, especially in the younger grades. And the limiting, requiring X number of instructional minutes throughout the course of a day and a year made that difficult to have more flexibility with the recess time for the kids. And what was presented to me as, like, there are districts that need every minute they can get with the kids. The way I paraphrased it was sort of like, well, your privilege is showing, tuck that back in. Because our kids may be doing fine and may need some more and some playtime, but requiring it to be in recess, and the school districts that really, one, don't have a place to put the kids for recess. They're in the hallways. There's no place outside.
Yeah, but we're not asking for it to be a requirement. We're asking it to be recognized as an alternative.
I know, but that's the feedback that was got to me. That, like, there are districts that are struggling mightily to get their kids up to grade level, and saying you can make this recess time was counterproductive to those districts. So that's the pushback that we're getting.
Yeah. Well, so anyway.
And I think it's valid.
So the next phase before we go to try to push it forward at the actual business meeting is to present or submit a rebuttal to their non-support. And I put together a rebuttal. I have a bunch of references. I have to submit it by September 20th at 5 o'clock. I gave everybody a copy of what that rebuttal was. I have had nothing but, I'm sure, are you guys all on board with it? All right, so then I'm going to submit it, and if it doesn't get approved through the rebuttal, then it would have to be made a motion by Trustee Smith at the actual business meeting to have it recognized. Is that correct, Kelly?
Yeah.
Okay.
She has to make the motion, and then someone has to.
Can I see that for a minute, please?
So that's where we're all with that.
Hang on a minute, please.
In order for it to bring to the table, we are the last one on the page, so hopefully there is a quorum, because last year we went all the way from 4 o'clock in the morning to almost midnight. Hopefully they have a quorum. If there's no quorum, it won't make it to the table. But just remember, we are not voting on the rationale. You are just voting on the resolution.
Right.
So they don't even look at the rationale.
No, I know, but to get it to the next level,
correct,
without going to that at the dinner meeting. I'm sorry. At
the October 10th.
Meeting,
yes, which is almost like
if the rebuttal is approved, then it would get to be heard without the motion.
Okay, and just as a point of reference, in our meeting with Regent Tillis at Eagle Elementary, he said, and I know Principal Scahill will back me up on this, he said he felt that was a good idea. That's something that should be an option for a certain amount of recess time. Because again, we've been challenged with how much recess time we can give the students, and the whole concept of, okay, eat lunch, go out to recess, and how much time is left. And he felt, wow, that was a really great suggestion and something that he would support.
Okay, we're good?
Yep.
All right, so I have one more thing on discussion topics. It was actually on last month's agenda, and we didn't get to it, so I'm going to get to it now. It's going to be quick. We have a community member by the name of Bruce Meltzer that graduated in the class of 1969 that would like to donate to the school district a proclamation type of award to an All-American Athlete Award. And the first one he wanted to recognize was Bob Figueroa, who was a graduate here in 1968. And he has a whole accolade of many, many sports accomplishments along the way. As a matter of fact, it was even mentioned that he had comparable times with Olympic gold medalists and silver medalist Tommy Smith and John Carlos back in the 1968 Olympics. So he was a world-class athlete. So what he proposes is to be the donator and do all the legwork and research for any Patchogue-Medford graduate that has acquired All-American status. So the discussion here would be, would we be willing to let him make that donation to hang the plaque or to put it in the showcase? You shaking?
I did not know this was going to be discussed tonight.
Well, we said last month it would be discussed tonight.
Yeah, but it's
I know,
it's
but
not on the
it wasn't
agenda.
on anything in correspondence, so I don't know if we're all ready to have this discussion. I'm just
I need some
speaking
more
for this side of the
information about
table.
who this guy is, what he wants to do, why does he want to put it in our building?
So he wanted one plaque for, I just want to get it right.
Well, he said he wanted to donate a plaque.
Correct.
And the name of the award would be the Bob Figueroa All-American Award.
Oh.
And Bob graduated from Pat Med?
Yes, in 1968.
Yes.
Okay.
And then they would add a series of other All-Americans that were named throughout the school district. And it would,
And then we would continue on, because, I mean, like, where do we stop? And how far do we go back to figure out how all Americans are? Because that's what I'm just saying, like.
I'm bringing it here for discussion, so that I'm bringing it up, so it's something that we need to talk about.
Sounds to me
We don't
like
have to make a
something that
decision today.
the Hall of Fame would want to get hold of.
But I think he wants to display it, like, in, I don't know where, wherever our sports trophies are. I mean, right by the gym, I know where they are. I just can't think
Yeah.
of what the gym is. And then put it right in there, or put it, like, you know, like, they have the class records or whatever they have there too, and then put All-American up there. But do we have something like that already?
What's that?
Do we have plaques to say who All-Americans are?
I don't know.
Do we have a picture of this thing that he wants to put in?
Oh, we're going to ask Mr. Krakow? Do we have that?
Can you come up to the microphone? Because it's being recorded and we know you love microphones. Thank you.
Hi. So the reason for this award coming forward is there have been several All-Americans over the years that have not received recognition. I know one of the trustees mentioned the Hall of Fame. When this gentleman reached out to me, he explained that because this was a student athlete that was very accomplished, but kind of lost track of over the years. You know, there was no one to really build a full Hall of Fame profile, talk about his community service. He wasn't necessarily recognized, and there were other athletes that fell into the same boat. To achieve an All-American status it's the highest level an athlete can reach. So this is a way to recognize someone that perhaps maybe should have been in the Hall of Fame already, maybe they're not, they didn't get in the first class, put his name on the award, and then any All-American that comes from Patchogue-Medford would be recognized on the plaque. We do have some plaques in the corridor for athletics that are like the Adeline plaques for students that reach a certain level. So it would be aligned in that. He did say he would leave it up to us to get the plaque made, designed it. He was just willing to pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, just going back to the Hall of Fame concept. So when the Hall of Fame started, it wasn't just like, oh, the Hall of Fame, and it's done. All right? I mean, it took months and months and months for us to go through. Dr. Jones knows the process, and I know we have Hall of Fame members here and understand that, and there's a whole process that they go through. What I'm not understanding is that, you know, okay, a lot of the Hall of Fame members have to put together that information, and yes, sometimes you're losing track of things or whatever, but they get the information and they put it in, they submit it, and that person gets, you know, nominated and becomes part of the Hall of Fame. It almost sounds like with all the information that's already being provided for this first individual, that wouldn't be a hard thing to do, and we already have a process in place on how it's done, and we don't need a donation from someone to do it. I appreciate the donation, of course we always do, but we really need to follow the process, because what this is asking for is for us to set up a whole new criteria on how to accept and put people, you know, on this on this plaque. So I would recommend that we just process this through the Hall of Fame and let them do what they do.
So the original conversation and my first conversation back was through Manny Falusis of the Hall of Fame. He had put the gentleman in touch with me. Since then, we've actually had a couple of separate meetings that I know Mr. Negra and Ms. Jennings were both present at to talk or to look at the criteria of how the selection process for the Hall of Fame was made, because the rubric has kind of changed over the years, and certain weights are given to certain areas. This really came about to recognize just the athletic accomplishments. It's not covering community service. It's not covering contribution to the Patchogue-Medford community.
Well, so does the Hall of Fame teams that won the Hall of Fame award, many teams over the last several years. Those weren't really community contributions other than that was a great team who won the state championship.
Right, I think they would have, for a track athlete, though, it wouldn't be like this is someone that's as accomplished as they come as an athlete.
But don't we have a track athlete, Mark, in the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
So I don't understand.
He ran in the Olympics, figure 11 meet.
Yeah.
So this is just a list of our All-Americans, right? That's straight.
Essentially, it's just a
That's
list
fine.
of the All-Americans.
This is my only concern, and that's it, is that I just want to know a little bit more, just individual, before we start naming an award after him. That's, I think that should be it. Other than
Listen,
that, I don't think there'd be a problem with it. Right?
Just so you know, I got the letter directly from Mr. Meltzer, but it was accompanied with an email from Manny Falusis, who's the president of the Hall of Fame. Now, the Hall of Fame's criteria is such that it is set the way it's set. This particular award is for straight-up athletic All-Americans. There was no other criteria, am I correct?
Yes.
It's just a list of All-American athletes, right?
Yes.
Dad graduated from here.
Yeah. All right. It's just a list of the names of outstanding athletes in the district.
Being an All-American's a big deal. Come on.
Yeah. That are All-Americans.
Understood this to be what it was, somebody had said, I will pay for a plaque to be put on the wall, and I have paused to that somebody decides that I want to put money to put a plaque on the wall, because where does that stop? So I don't want to set a precedent.
I'm sorry.
I don't want to start setting precedents about a concerned citizen has somebody who is greatly deserving of acknowledgement and wants to put a plaque on the wall. And we'll say, well, of course, he's going to give some money for the plaque. I don't want to set that precedent.
That's my point. Whether we don't know, I don't know who this guy is.
I would like to know who you have this down. I would like to know, we want to be very clear that we're not setting precedents that someone can say, I have found a guy, I found a person who is very, very deserving, and we missed them.
No, that's not, listen, listen, I'm not trying to be adversarial about it. I'm just saying that these are accolades that were accomplished at the highest level in amateur athletics. He was an All-American in the sport, or, so to recognize them separate from the Hall of Fame that has its own criteria, it's not just athletics, it's community service, it's integrity, it's a whole, so this is a totally different thing.
Well, is this
I
something
think
that?
Bernadette means, because I speak fluent Bernadette, I think she means then where do we stop if somebody comes in with the arts or somebody comes in with, like, where do you draw the line of people wanting to put a plaque for something in the school?
Well, I think if we keep it within our, like, if it's athletics and it goes to Mr. Krakow and he's overseeing it, not someone externally. If it was in the music department and Nate was overseeing something, if there's an equivalent to that, then I don't know. I don't want to put another job on your plate, but that to me makes more sense.
It's case by case.
Sounds like it needs a little bit more
Yes.
unpacking and discussion.
Thank you.
That's what this was. It was
My
just letting it out.
recommendation for whatever that might be worth is the upcoming work session.
Add it on. Okay. All right, so that's it on the board topics, correct?
Community comments.
Okay, now we have community comments. Dr. Cohen.
Ms. Julian Peterson, you have 3 minutes. Please direct any comments to the board president.
Go. Okay. Being on board committees for many years, I just wanted to touch base with a few of those to add to your discussion. As I definitely do feel what Tom said was pretty accurate with the students. It is very difficult to get members. The 1 year that we had 400 is because they were Zoom. If people have to come out personally into the meetings, you don't really get a lot of people. I do feel that there should be something written up saying what you feel, what each committee is what their charge is, and that, these are the expectations, but I don't think anybody should be removed or anything like that. And no disrespect to recognition night, and I don't need the accolades. I don't need but I sit on multiple committees and get one recognition. And I'm not looking for that. I'm just adding to the discussion. A lot of people go through social media with our committees. Maybe we can encourage them to come as opposed to putting everything on social media. Board committees are really supposed to be run by the school board member with district members as a liaison. Goals are supposed to be created by the committee. With looking at this September 30th now, just and Tom, being legislative, we used to go year-round with some of them. Just a suggestion, maybe have these applications the end of June, approve them in July, and then you can start right away in September, because personally, our time is valuable, and if I'm attending these meetings and we don't have a meeting for Christmas, or we don't have a meeting for this, it took 2 years to do a policy with instructional, and review something which might have been a little bit faster. And not that people want to meet over the summer, I'm not saying that, but if there was something like going through a traffic light and meeting with a legislator over the summer, you can have the committee there. So this way, it's consistent and that we're making progress. We're doing something that we can say, hey, community, look, you want to join us because we're doing something. We're making things happen. But I definitely feel that a combination of the things that were discussed today, I definitely feel that with the students, they get the Honor Society credits, maybe touch base with Reagan. I think she's still the one who is the head.
30 seconds.
Talk with them at the high school and see if that's something that's still, still whatever. And as far as the Hall of Fame, the rubric has been the rubric. I wrote the rubric. It is the same rubric, but it can absolutely be modified because we do have modifications for people who have passed on or athletes who the community service is doing that sport. So that is a community service. Integrity is something that you just can't step away from. That's what it is. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Uh-oh.
Short. Good evening, Kevin Tulin, Patchogue-Medford Congress of Teachers. I just want to say, with any policy, specifically the grading policy, there's always revisions. And right now, I think the policy was set. Ms. Kennedy, as she said, shared a lot with the high school teachers. We did make some changes before you adopted it. And I think last year, at the high school alone, we generated 10,000 grades. And at the elementary school, the policy doesn't impact the elementary school. And somewhere at the middle school, we're probably sitting around 7,500 grades, of course, the whole year. I believe the teachers are going to look very closely at how students are progressing at the end of the first marking period. And there will be plenty of noise if things are not working out. I think we're dealing with right now a lot of teachers that are adjusting to how the policy comes out. And maybe, maybe I gave 40 grades in a marking period and the colleague down the hall gave 10, and they have to meet in the middle, right? That's what this policy is dictating. So there are some growing pains amongst my colleagues as this is rolling out, and they're adjusting. So I think it's going to take a little time, but I know Ms. Canetti, Dr. Jones, and I will reevaluate probably somewhere around Thanksgiving, saying this is or is not working. We're not going to wait until June and have children that are high and dry, without a diploma. So I think that we will work very well together and monitor this as it goes on, and I'm sure we can do a good job of adding to what formative, what summative is in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toolin. Anybody else? Okay.
Board comments?
We're going to move on to board comments. We'll start
All right.
with
So
Trustee
first
Salazar.
off, congratulations to the staff and faculty and administration for a successful start to the school year. I also want to congratulate all our administrators that are newly promoted. Congratulations. And I want to congratulate Teresa on her new appointment. We look forward to working with you. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to thank Ms. Canetti and Dr. Lucas for helping clarify some of our concerns and continuing that too.
Trustee Krieger.
Okay. I just wanted to say that the building walkthroughs were great. We saw some great stuff over the summer. The community concert was awesome. It gets better and better every year. I did miss the convocation because I had my own back-to-school stuff at BOCES, but I heard such great things. My brain's a little fried because, 8 days back into school, it feels like it's about 2 months already, and having 2 high schoolers, now one being a girl, has pushed our wake-up time to 5 a.m. So I just want to say congrats to all the new positions. I'm happy to see 6 Pat-Med kids in my electrical class this year at BOCES, which is fantastic because we only had 1 that was put in late last year, as well as a Raider Academy student in my BOCES building, which I thought was fantastic at bus duty the other day. I want to welcome everybody back and looking forward to a great year. And then lastly, I just want to say thanks to Dominic Thorne, Legislator Dominic Thorne, one more time, who put a no left turn sign at the half circle in front of St. Francis. So you cannot go left now onto South Ocean. You can only go towards the district office. So between that and the crossing guard that he got us, we really might see some even better safety things going on over there. And I think La Martina had something to do with that too.
Trustee Smith.
I think it's highly likely Mrs. Lamartina had something to do with that.
I think she did.
Congratulations to Ms. Padalecchia and Mr. Santacroce and Mrs. D'Oliva. Welcome. I'm very happy for all of you. Oh, yes. And welcome back to everybody. I did do the walkthrough. Custodial and maintenance buildings are gorgeous. Thank you very much. There was a lot of work that was done over the summer with the upgrading the bathrooms at the high school, which I've been complaining about forever, and they're beautiful. Thank you. Welcome back. And Mrs. Canetti and Dr. Lucas, thank you for your work on the new policy with the grading policy. I do anticipate it's going to be, I do know that it was some very important changes that were made, and it's just little tweaks here and there about why the community doesn't understand. We have been working on how we're all communicating to each other for a while, and I think we're getting better at it, but we can always get better. So thank you very much.
Trustee Jennings.
Just to piggyback on that, congratulations to all the staff and administrators, and congratulations to Teresa. I look forward to an exciting and fun year to work with you.
Trustee D'Onofrio. You good? Okay. Vice President Andrade. Oh, she's got a whole thing of notes here. You got 2 pads.
You have 3 minutes.
I'm not going to read all this. Sorry. What did you say, Joe?
You got
You have 30 minutes.
Okay, I
Trustee
can do it in 3
Andrade.
minutes. Well, first, I just wanted to say that, being that we're going to
Feel the power.
talk about committee on the 7th, our first committee meeting for extracurricular is October 9th at 5 p.m. So I just wanted to say that because we can. The second thing I wanted to bring up, and I hate to be, the one that brings this up, but so I looked at the class sizes for some of our, younger kids' classes, and some of them are, it's, when we talk equity, it's all over the place. So I'm just wondering, is there a plan in place for those numbers that are, like in K through 2 especially, that are 26, 27, 25, and then there are some that are 14 and 15. Is there anything we can do about
Well,
this?
so, so that's an interesting conversation.
I know.
And a little loaded.
I know.
But I will say that there are some parents that are very clear that they would rather their child be in an overcrowded classroom than change schools. That's a big deal. So we have that a lot at Bay, where there's a wait list, and we have to cut off at the required contractual amount of students, and that's why the numbers are so high at Bay until we add additional space there. But it doesn't matter. Those parents, they want to be at Bay. They do not want their school changed. And that is something Dr. Lucas knows, Ms. Canetti knows, Mr. Mendez knows all too well, that this is a challenge we have. And there is space in some of the larger schools because they have more space. It is a challenge, but without moving children from one building to another, which takes them out of their zone. And sometimes they have siblings that are going to that same school, and parents just would prefer the siblings remain together. So my point, Trustee Andrade, is it's a little bit more complicated than just equalizing, because that requires moving children.
Yeah, I mean, of course, me from my head, I wasn't even suggesting that. Of course, my first suggestion would be, let's add a teacher and open up. But if you're saying there's no room in the building, then yeah, that is a little more
And
complicated.
it also
Yeah, and I think one of
is
the
about
things-
money, too.
The dual
I
language
understand.
programs, Dr. Jones, I think one of the concerns is, just so the trustees know, we do have a TA in our K-1 dual language classes, because they sometimes get a little bit higher than our non-dual language classes. So right now, the kindergarten section that you're looking at is Bay's dual language, right? So
There's
that one particular class.
Bay General Ed has 26,
Right.
and the dual language has 25. So
Right,
both
so
of those
Bay
classes
itself-
should have TAs in them then.
Right, we have kindergarten aides in kindergarten,
Right.
general education, but we did add the TAs in the dual language class, because that's where we tend to get larger amounts of students, because when an ENL student qualifies for services in our district, the dual language is their primary placement. They have to opt out of it. So if we have an L come in, we must, by law, place them in a bilingual program unless a parent opts out of it. Most of our parents don't opt out of it because it's an amazing program. So that's why we put the TAs, because if you go back to that slide that I showed you about how many students, right? And in a dual language program, we also have to make sure we secure the appropriate staff and making sure that the staff that we hire is bilingual. So it's not just about opening up another section, because the sections we need to open, we would need to have a certified teacher to open that. So it's a little bit more
Which is not that
complicated.
easy all the time to find. So
Trustee
it's a
Andra-
little bit more complex than meets the eye.
No, I do not think it's easy. I'm just looking at these numbers and looking at, when one school has a class of
No,
14 and
I
one
hear
has
it.
26, just everything, small instruction, the time you're spending with kids. We want, we want to get them ahead and everything, and then you're dealing, that's
Your
what I'm
point
looking
is well taken. The challenge is,
Yep.
there are multifacets to the challenge. Dr. Lucas, did you want to add something?
I did. I just wanted to add the two classes that you're seeing at 14 are both ICT classes, or inclusive co-teaching classes. So right now, in the beginning of kindergarten, there's very few students who are identified that require integrated co-teaching. So we almost have to save spots, 6 in each class, for students that will become identified and need to go into that class. So very often our ICT classes, so the 2 classes at Barton that are at 14 are because of that. The other class that's at 14, we just had 2 students enroll to go to a charter. So that's why that's there.
So there's no general ed class at Barton in kindergarten?
There is, it's at 17.
At 17. Okay, yeah, I mean, 17 is very
Right.
different than 26.
Sure.
It's a
Keep in
huge-
mind, Barton too is also the central, so that will
Yes.
now start to take all of the overflows.
Yep.
Right, and that's historically what's happened the last couple of years. But Bay, just to give you a little bit of information, has 16 kindergartners overflowed right now.
Yeah.
Good? My turn? I'm up. Okay, I just want to, I'm not going to go 3 minutes.
You're all good.
I just want to say thank you to everybody for everything, all the administrators that are here. Thank you for everything that you do every day to make sure the programs work the way they're designed to work. Without your direction and your leadership, it wouldn't happen. And thank you, Mr. Toole, to every single teacher that comes to work every day with the goal to make a difference in a child's life, because that's why they went to school, to make a difference in a child's life. And to welcome our 2 new administrators that are going to add to this team. And Teresa, best of wishes to you. And we're looking forward to working with you on a regular basis. We'll be talking on the phone quite a bit. And remember that you support the superintendent's office as well as the Board of Education. And you're the face of us now. So thank you for stepping up to that. And with that, we can make a motion for an adjournment.
Okay, need a motion? Who was the second?
I want to stay.
Any opposed?
None opposed,
Nope.
all in favor. Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.